But that would be my start.
Go. Katie. Katie, go. Okay. Полетный врач, где спросите? Вот он, полетный врач.
NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine, sir, not the outcome we had expected from today's launch, but the bottom line is the crew is safe and sound back here in Baikonur. Your thoughts as the events unfolded today and how we proceed in tandem with Roscosmos from here.
So the United States and Roscosmos have a long and productive history, going all the way back to the Apollo-Soyuz program in 1975, the Shuttle Mir program after the Apollo-Soyuz program, and of course, we've been collaborating on the International Space Station now for 20 years. So this has been a very long and productive relationship, and we want to make sure that it stays strong. I want to start by saying how proud I am of Nick Hague, our astronaut, and his wife Katie. You know, they came to Kazakhstan, Baikonur, Kazakhstan, for a launch to the International Space Station on a Russian Soyuz rocket. Nick, like all of our astronauts, learned Russian in order to do this launch. He's been training for 5 years. This was his first trip to the International Space Station, and so I am confident that he's disappointed. I will also say that we are thrilled that he's safe. We are thrilled that even though it was a launch failure, all of the safety systems worked. And from what we know so far, his communications, the crew's efforts were heroic. They both came home safely, and for that, we're extremely grateful. And I also want to say that we're also proud of Alexey Ovchinin, his Russian counterpart on the same Soyuz crew capsule. And so it has been a long day. It's been a difficult day. The NASA family, and this is critically important, the NASA family has to be so proud of all the people that worked so hard and prepared so well for this. When you think about where the crews were, where they landed, it was a ballistic re-entry. We don't know all the details at this point as to how many Gs were pulled and those kind of things, but we do know this, that on a ballistic re-entry, we had the right people in the right place. We had flight surgeons downrange on helicopters with their Russian counterparts. We had airplanes ready to go so that those helicopters could get to the closest airport where airplanes could pick up the crew. The flight surgeons executed splendidly. Nicole Mann was there with the family all day today, and she's an astronaut herself, in the same class as Nick Hague, so they were longtime friends and counterparts. To have her there supporting the family when, for a period of time, we didn't know what the situation was, and watching the NASA family go into action to make sure that all the information could be gathered, that our crews were safe. It really was a difficult day, and at the same time, an amazingly, in so many ways, an amazingly successful day. So the whole NASA family needs to be proud. Bill Gerstenmaier, of course, the Associate Administrator of Human Exploration and Operations, was here. And of course, watching his team go to work. Brian Kelly, the Director of Flight Operations from the Johnson Space Center. Of course, so many others. If I start naming names, it gets to be too many. But this was my first opportunity to see them all in action when something happened that wasn't exactly perfect. And it is overwhelmingly clear to me that that they've been working for a very long time together, and they just did a magnificent job. I also want to say, Katie Hague, Nick's wife, is probably the perfect wife. She is not only an Air Force spouse, she's an Air Force officer herself, and of course she's involved in communications. She's a public affairs officer. And to watch her in action while her husband was going through this was very impressive. Bev Hague, Nick's mom, and Don Hague, Nick's dad, and the way they handled themselves in this was amazing. And Nick himself, I'll just say this: when I got to see him at the airport just a few minutes ago, his personality was as bright as ever. And so I'm humbled and just thrilled with the quality of people, the amount of effort and training and everything that went into this. It was a tough day, no doubt, but at the end of the day, the training paid off for everybody on the ground. The crews were all ready, everybody was prepared, and this is what they trained for, this is what they prepare for, and it worked.
The Roscosmos has vowed to get to the bottom of this, and they said, specifically, Mr. Rogozin said, that it would be on behalf of the international partnership that they would get to the bottom of this. In the meantime, the space station flies smoothly on with a crew of 3 on board. Your thoughts about the intertwining of work by NASA and Roscosmos in the hours that followed this incident and where it leads us from this point on?
That's a wonderful question. And my counterpart, Dmitri Rogozin, the head of Roscosmos, the general director of Roscosmos, watching him go into his actions and watching his crew start their procedures, I do believe that that they did the right things, that they had the right people in the right places, and their crew working side by side with our crew, both on the brink of space and on deck. That too was impressive. Look, this relationship is strong. We can both of our nations can do more together than we can do separate, and they recognize that, and we recognize that. And so as we move forward, certainly we want to provide any information that we can provide in the investigation. We want to make sure that when we do launch again, and I believe we will launch again on a Soyuz rocket, that we understand what this anomaly was, that we resolve it, and that together we can launch again and have success.
Jim, the NASA team that comes here to Baikonur for every one of these Soyuz launches specifically prepares for contingencies. And today it was a choreography that really went very smoothly, given the circumstances of a difficult day as you described. Your thoughts on how that all unfolded?
The capabilities of the NASA team are just amazing. The training, the resources, the amount of effort that goes in years ahead of time. Everybody knows that our astronauts in some cases train for 5 or even 10 years before they do their first mission. When you think about people like Kirk Shireman, who is the program manager on the International Space Station, his whole team is here. And it's clear from his leadership that it has filtered down to the entire organization. Watching them spring into action and get through the necessary procedures to make sure everybody is safe. Pat Forrester is another person, the head of the astronaut office, a retired astronaut himself. He got right on the plane. Dmitri Rogozin, the head of Roscosmos, flew out to an outlying field where the helicopter brought our astronauts, and certainly Pat Forrester and his experience and his knowledge as an astronaut himself, the confidence that he brings to the crew, those kind of things are important and they matter. It's also true that we have a number of really impressive flight surgeons. One was there for the off chance that there would be a ballistic reentry. In other words, an unplanned reentry from an aborted launch. And Bill Tarver was there on a Russian helicopter, and of course he was downrange, just kind of waiting and prepared. And of course, when those crews got out of the capsule, he was the first one on scene. Another impressive guy that we all as a NASA family need to be proud of. And of course, Blake Chamberlain, another flight surgeon that went downrange with Pat Forrester, the head of the astronaut office, ready to meet our crews. And now our crews are back in Baikonur at a hospital, going through some evaluations, and they're with their families. You just think about the entire NASA team. It is an impressive group of individuals. Some of the smartest, most capable, best trained, and they've been here a long time. And it's daunting. It's absolutely humbling to be at the head of this agency, especially on a day like today.
We'll be checking out all stages of the technological process. This rocket has a long history of failureless execution. The good news is that the emergency rescue system worked as it should have. So we could have had drastic outcome, but it had been mitigated and everything is well now. Of course, a commission will be set up, and we're going to fulfill all our responsibilities on collaboration with our US, European, Canadian, Japanese colleagues. We're analyzing telemetry right now.
В целом хочу сказать, что мы высоко оценим действия экипажа.
Overall, the crew performed fantastically. I heard the communication that they were holding with the operators, and their training proved itself. That's why we do everything that we can. That's why we train the crew so that such type of contingencies can be worked with. Thank God everyone is alive. They're feeling great and they're ready to continue.
Коллеги, спасибо.